the sunshine.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Coffee Thoughts Podcast. I hope you're doing well, I hope you're having a good week, and I hope that you have an amazing weekend. It's Friday today, and I started to kind of vibe with putting these out on Fridays instead of Wednesdays, because I feel like for myself, that's like a better portion of the week usually is later in the week, because even though like I work from home and I work for myself, I still feel the whole kind of Monday thing. You know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday comes around and you're like, okay, fuck yeah, weekend's coming. I still kind of roll with that like schedule a little bit. So I feel like Thursdays or Fridays is kind of for me a better, more open kind of day, and I've had a week to kind of digest experiences and kind of think about what's going on. So that's why I'm going to do Fridays from now on with these podcasts. I hope you guys don't mind. So anyway, a couple updates before I start. I just put out a teaser clip for a song called Anxiety, which I'll be dropping in September, and putting out 2 albums in October, the Nosebleed EP and the acoustic version of the EP. And then Gentlemen Stoners, we're still working on episode 5. We're just like, we keep writing more, and we're both playing like multiple characters in this one, so it's taken longer to shoot, and I definitely is our best work though, and we want to make sure that this episode works as like a standalone episode, so we can submit it to festivals, some comedy festivals and whatnot. So that's coming, and then other than that, I've just been working on some more acting stuff and doing the life thing. So anyway, today I'd like to discuss self-guilt, and this kind of ties into one of my previous episodes, which was about playing the victim, that kind of victim mentality. So if you haven't watched that, go watch that first, or you don't have to, whatever. But I think it's just it's a whole other kind of like layer to that I probably should talk about. And honestly, like, I've been watching a lot of Russell Brand videos lately, because he started making like just videos, like kind of podcast style videos, and honestly, like they're really insightful, and I really like his kind of philosophy and everything. But this was something that he was talking about, and what I like about him is that he always has a very personal approach to things, and you know, he's very like, this is what happened to me, and I feel like I try to be like that, you know, but there's certain topics that's like you're kind of scared to talk about, because you don't want to admit that you experienced something, you don't want to admit that you used to be, you know, a person that you didn't like, or you know, that kind of thing. But I think it's like, for me, when I hear someone be honest about that, be open about that shit, like, it's very helpful, like super helpful. So I just want to talk about self-guilt a little bit, because it's something that it's hard to overcome, man, because when something happens in your life of this like imaginary timeline that we have, because ultimately I think the most fundamental thing to remind yourself of is that now is it. This is all that there is ever and has been, and the past is imaginary, the future is imaginary. When we get there, we won't really be getting anywhere, because it'll just be here. We never really were anywhere, it was just always here. But we have this kind of like, you know, paradigm of like linear thinking as humans, and that's kind of what fucks us up, man, because we think that the past affects the future, which are both two like imaginary concepts. So what ends up happening is that we have like we start thinking about the past that we have in our heads or in our minds, whatever the hell that thing is, and we bring all that stuff into the present moment, and then we manifest it as the future. So we're doing nothing but projecting energy out and bringing that back in, and we imagine that the past has this big effect on the future. And like, I'm not saying that you make a decision now, it's not going to like affect a future moment, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of times what happens, we get tripped up in the things that happened to us, or you know, around us, and we use those to build like a map of what the future will look like. And this is kind of where the problem happens, and it's hardest when, because the last episode that I was talking about was more about when things happen to you, but what I want to discuss is like when you make decisions that fuck your life up, and when you become somebody that you hate, or when you are in a spot where it's your fault and you know that you shouldn't have done this thing, or you should have made a better decision, or you fuck up in your life, because we all do it. And let's be fucking honest, man, we all do it, and we all sit there thinking that no one else does it, or we sit there thinking that everyone else does it and we don't do it. It's usually one of those two things, but we have to remember that all of us do it. Dude, like, we're literally in this, like, reality. Number one, we don't know what the fuck it is. We don't know why we're here. We don't know how we got here. We're just here, man. We're literally just here, and as far as we know, in this form, we didn't have a say in that. Maybe, like, there's a part of ourselves that, you know, is less physical, that decided to be here. Cool, but if that's the case, we forget. So you gotta remember, we're just put here, and we have to fucking figure it out, man. And I have to say, like, we do pretty damn good job of, like, keeping our shit together as much as we can. So don't feel too bad about, like, the fact that you fuck up, man, and the fact that everyone fucks up, because it's no easy task to exist and to survive. It's not, like, and it's just like, that's, give yourself some fucking props for still being around, man, because it's a lot to get through even in a day, man. And so you just gotta remember, like, we're kind of just stumbling around here, and we're not always gonna be perfect. We're not gonna make the right decisions, and we have to go through fuck ups to understand, you know, what not to do. And this doesn't just apply to, like, physical reality. I'm not saying, like, you know, you have to touch fire and you get burned and you know not to touch fire. That shit's important. But what I'm talking about is, like, the inner world that we have, that we don't know anything about. We have this inner world that is also tied to what we can, you know, perceive to be the outer world. And it's this kind of unexplored territory that we don't understand. It's like, if we did understand it, we would be able to make sure we never got angry, never got jealous, never got sad, and we would be able to see all those things coming and control them, but we can't, you know. And I think you can practice awareness, you can practice, you know, being more conscious of your emotions and the things that come and go. But what I'm saying is, like, we don't necessarily have conscious control over our inner space, and that's another place that we have to stumble around in. We have to fuck up. We have to become shitty people at times in our lives. We have to hurt people. We have to deal with things in a shitty way in order to understand, like, wow, like, I gotta stay away from that corner of myself. I gotta stay away from this corner. I gotta make sure I don't think these things too much, otherwise I'm gonna end up feeling this thing. You have to go through that shit, and it's like, I wish that we didn't have to. But I just think it's just a natural part of, like, becoming you and becoming who you know that you want to be. Because when you're in those moments in life, when you hurt somebody, you know, when you are somebody that you know you don't even like to be around, you don't want that, you know, there's a part of you that knows that, and that knows that you don't want that, you know. There's always this kind of awareness that it's like, you feel it in your gut, man. It's like, this is wrong, even if you're, like, yelling at somebody, even if you're, like, doing something really stupid, there's a part of you that just knows it's wrong and knows that it's hurting your fucking soul. But it's like, you gotta feel that pain sometimes. At least for me, I've found that in my life, man. It's like, I've had to see the worst versions of myself in order to become a better, you know, version of myself, or just, like, to be able to navigate my inner world. And that's not, you know, it's not an excuse for making stupid decisions or treating people poorly, but it's just, looking back, it's like, there's nothing I can do about the things that I've done now, except realize that there's a lot that I didn't know about myself and that I was capable of, and now I know, I have a way more clear picture. So moving forward, I've mapped out that shit, and I don't ever want to go back there or here or wherever. So I think, just kind of leading into, like, self-guilt and whatever, you just try to understand that, and try to just know, it's like, if you could control fully, you know, yourself and your emotions, you would have never fucked up in your life. But we're not taught that. We have to learn that ourselves by stumbling around, and people try to guide us, and that's awesome, but you have to go through that shit, man, because it's like the whole temptation thing. It's like, if you don't ever know what's out there, you know, and you just kind of stay hidden your whole life, eventually you're gonna be like, I wonder what, you know, what it's like to drink a fucking bottle of whiskey. I wonder what that's gonna be. And you're gonna be 30, and then you're gonna fucking ruin your marriage, you know, lose your job. It's like, if you do that shit when you're young, you learn, man. And what I'm saying is, like, it's like that with anything. it's like I think it's important to go through those growth phases and that growth period, even if it's very dark, and even if you hurt people, even if like you fuck up relationships, even if you fuck up your life for little patches. It's like, well, thank God, like, you know now, and thank God that, like, right now you can decide to not ever do that again, and moving forward you know what you're capable of, and you know what happens if you do certain things. So what I'm saying is, like, be okay with where you are right now, and be okay with all the shit that you may have done in the past, that you may have gone through in the past. Be okay with the people you might have hurt, the stupid decisions you've made, because they're done. They are done. So just let them go, even just for the duration of like this fucking video. Just let them go, and just hear me out for a couple minutes here. So what happens when we start to get caught up in, man, 3 years ago I was a shitty person. I was really shitty. You know, I was angry, I was jealous all the time. I was like playing the victim all the time. I blamed everyone else for my problems. You start thinking about that, you know, and you start to remember what it felt like to be that, and you start to think about the things that you were doing, and you start to think about the things you were saying, you start to think about the thoughts you were thinking, and you literally start to bring that kind of skeleton of that back into reality, back into present reality. And what ends up happening is you start to remember that version of yourself, and then you start to see yourself in that light again. So even if like you're a completely different person, like I know for me, when I was like what I considered overweight and unhappy and depressed, if I think about that, even though like I work hard on my body now, and like I'm always just like trying to do my best to work out and like be healthier, when I start to think about it, no matter how much I've changed, I still like feel that sense of like looking in the mirror and hating what I see. And I still feel that, and that kind of seeps in, even though my present reality is completely different than that. And you start to feel guilty for ever being that person, because you feel like that you still are that person in a way, but you're not. You're not, because you can look back on that person now. You got to think of what is looking back on that thing that was you at the time. It's you. You know, it's a different version of you that has a new perspective, that's able to see that as, you know, a separate kind of entity or whatever. Because you got to think about this too. It's like the question of what is you. You know, if there was one you, there's one thing that was you, then you'd be able to identify the one thing. But what you are, what we are, what I am, is a collection of habits, collection of thoughts, collection of things that you say, collection of behaviors. Because there's a different you for every year of your life, every patch of your life. A you that was doing different things that may, you know, it's just like, let's say for me, like I try to talk about my own shit, drinking a lot and eating really shitty food, and angry all the time and just like depressed. That's a collection of like behaviors and thoughts that made up, looking back, like that version of me. And now, you know, it's like different. You know, I'm healthier. I go to the gym. I meditate a lot more. My thoughts are different. My consciousness is in a whole different spot. You know, my way that I see myself is different. My confidence is there, and the activities I'm pursuing are different than they were back then. So like that's me now. And you know, when you were a baby, it was just like crawling around and screaming and crying, and you know, that was you at the time. And to every person in your life, everyone that's ever met you, you are a different person. You are whatever they perceived you as at the time in the moment. So the idea that you have of yourself is one of many, and they're all right. You know, they are all right, and that's what you got to remember. So the most important thing is the way that you see yourself, because you know, I know the way that other people see you can influence the way that you act and the way that you think, but what is most powerful is the way that you view yourself. So if you can just remember that you are a collection of a bunch of different things, and you know, ultimately in a weird way that makes you also nothing, because you're all these different things, but then there's this like weird space in between all that. What I just think is important is to remember that you are now. You are right now. You are what you are and who you are and what you do right now. So when you start to think about past versions of yourself or things that you did, you bring that energy back. and you feel this guilt of like, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done that, and you start to rerun it in your head, and you start to kind of subconsciously just act that way again, or think that you're acting that way, and you start to be a little maybe more timid, or maybe like less confident because you think you're a shitty person. And you have to be careful, man. And you have to be okay with the fact that you made mistakes, you know? Be okay with it, because there's nothing you could have done. And it's like, that doesn't mean it's okay to fucking hurt people, and, you know, to ruin people's fucking days, or to make promises you know you can't keep. And I've done that many times in my life, you know, and I think back on those times, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I wish that I had the foresight to know how these things that I'm doing or saying or feeling are going to affect me, or going to affect people in my life. I wish, but I didn't. I did the best with what I had, even if that wasn't a very good job, and I fucked up. I made mistakes in my life, you know. I've lost people in my life, you know. I've burned bridges in my life. I've made stupid ass decisions that have gotten me in really, you know, bad spots. I've done all that, and I'm probably going to do more of that in my life without meaning to. But then it's like, hopefully down the road I can look back again, be like, all right, don't fucking do that again. But the key, and what I think needs to happen, is like, you got to be okay with it. And the more you're okay with it, and the more you're open about it to yourself, because that's the thing. It's like, if you're like, you know what, yeah, I did fuck up, man, but I'm not that person anymore. Even if you did the worst fucking thing, as long as you are not that person now, and as long as you know what you did, and you know that you can learn from that, doesn't mean it's ever gonna fix it. Doesn't mean it's ever gonna make it better. And hopefully people can forgive you, and hopefully you can forgive yourself and forgive other people. But as long as you know now that you are not that person, and that you don't have to be that person, that's all that matters, man. Because if people come to you and, you know, only accept a past version of you that maybe was a shitty person, or, you know, hurt them, you can't control that, man. You can't control that. And the only time it matters is if you still are that person all the time, you know? And I think it's just important to try to learn from your shit, man. Just try. And it's like, I try all the time to just like catch myself doing things or thinking things that I know I shouldn't be, you know, because we have all these fucking tendencies, and we have all these fucking, you know, desires and you know, instincts and all this shit that we're always trying to kind of fight and push, and it's not an easy thing. But no one's fucking perfect. I'm not fucking perfect. You're not fucking perfect. Parents aren't perfect. Your friends aren't perfect. Your fucking boyfriend, your girlfriends, no one's perfect, man. We're just trying our best here, and as long as you just, I think, just learn from what you've done and try not to fuck up your life, what else can you really ask for, man? It's like, don't get caught up on the shit that you've done in the past, man. It's like, we've all made mistakes, all of us, you know, and we all have parts of ourselves that you know, the whole world doesn't see, and that we only know, and, you know, we have to kind of fight. But it's like, man, you're waking up every day, you're somehow making it back into bed at night, you know, you're still alive, you're fighting your demons, you know, you're trying to work towards your goals, man. Just give yourself some fucking credit, and just focus on right now, okay? So hopefully that helps a little bit, and thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it, and I will see you next Friday. Make sure to join my live streams, download my app, follow me on Instagram, SayWeCanFly, and all my music is on the internet. So, love you guys. Thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you soon. Stay cozy. Peace.